The galaxy had always underestimated humans. Other civilizations looked at them and saw frailty, unpredictability, and impatience. To them, humans were just a young species, barely out of their homeworld, clinging to the stars with fragile ships and fragile dreams. But in the Orion expanse, where distant stars burned cold and bright, humanity was about to prove that their spirit was anything but fragile. Admiral Kale stood alone on the bridge of the Vigilant Dawn, the largest carrier in the human fleet. The bridge was quiet, almost unnaturally so, except for the hum of the engines and the faint beep of the navigation systems. Kale's eyes were fixed on the holographic display hovering above the center console. Red dots, countless red dots, stretched across the expanse. The alien Dreadfleet was coming. The Zir were not just a threat. They were a nightmare made real. Their ships were enormous, sleek, and designed to crush anything that dared challenge them. Legends said they could annihilate entire colonies in a single strike. Kale had seen footage of their attacks, the aftermath of planets reduced to molten rock, cities vaporized in a flash. Humanity had no illusions. This was war, and it could be their last. Yet despite the danger, Kale felt a strange calm. He remembered what had brought humanity to this point. The relentless expansion, the colonies built against all odds, the determination to survive even when the universe seemed determined to destroy them. Humans had been pushed to the edge before, and they had always found a way back. "Admiral," his comm officer said, breaking the silence, "Our fleet is entering interception range. They're moving fast. They expect what? Surrender, I suppose." Kale didn't answer immediately. He allowed himself a small smile. "Let them expect," he said softly. "We will show them what humans can do when they are cornered." The bridge crew shifted nervously. Pilots checked their suits, engineers adjusted shields, and communication officers monitored the channels. Every human knew the odds. Every human knew that this battle could be the last one they ever fought. And yet none of them hesitated. None of them flinched. There was fear, yes, but more than that, there was fire. There was determination. On the carrier decks, young pilots suited up. Many were barely 20, their hands trembling as they strapped into cockpits for the first time in a real war. Some were veterans, hardened by previous skirmishes, but all shared the same feeling. This was more than a mission. This was the moment where humanity's defiance would be measured against the galaxy's most feared species. Lieutenant Mara adjusted her helmet and ran through her mental checklist. She could feel the hum of the engines beneath her, a vibration that matched the pounding of her heart. Around her, other fighters were warming up, their thrusters flaring softly. "We may be small," Mara thought, "but we are not weak. We are human." Kyle moved to the observation deck, looking out into the void. The stars stretched endlessly, but it wasn't the stars that drew his attention. It was the approaching Dreadfleet. Millions of tons of living metal, stretching across the void like a river of shadow and fire. Every Zir ship was a predator, and humanity was the prey. But Kale did not see prey. He saw fighters. He saw hope. He saw courage that would burn brighter than any weapon in the galaxy. Humans had survived ice storms on distant moons, pirate raids in uncharted space, and natural disasters that had wiped out entire colonies. They had endured. They had survived. And they had learned to fight back. The first transmissions from the Zir came, a calm and cold message broadcast across the void. "Surrender your fleet. Humanity is weak. Resistance is futile." Kale listened silently. He felt the anger rise, but also the pride. "We are not weak," he whispered almost to himself. "We are defiant. And defiant is our strength." On the fighter decks, pilots were already strapping in. Mara glanced at her friends, at young faces full of fear but also determination. They didn't know what awaited them in the coming battle, but they knew they would face it together. The engines roared to life, the vibration resonating through every human ship. Humanity's pulse was alive in the void, and it was strong. Kale returned to his bridge chair, his hands resting on the console. The fleet was small, fragile in comparison to the Zir Dreadfleet. But Kale knew something the aliens did not. Humans were unpredictable. Humans could adapt. Humans could endure. And humans could fight with a kind of ferocity that no one in the galaxy had ever seen. "Remember this," Kale said to his crew. "We may be outnumbered. We may be outgunned, but they have never faced a human fleet like this. Let them come. Let them see our defiance. Let them remember that humanity does not bow. We fight no matter the cost." As the Zir Dreadfleet drew closer, the tension in the void became almost unbearable. Every crew member felt it. The electric anticipation, the fear, the excitement. It was a moment that would define them. The calm before the storm, the edge of history, and somewhere deep inside every human burned the same thought. We will not die quietly. We will not surrender. The galaxy will remember us. Kyle's eyes narrowed as he activated the fleet's battle formation. The stars ahead were no longer just lights. They were a battlefield. And humanity, small but unyielding, was ready. The war was about to begin. The silence of the void shattered like glass when the human fleet made its first move. The carriers, smaller and older than the Zir dreadships, split into multiple groups, weaving through asteroid belts and debris fields. The aliens, used to intimidation and brute force, did not expect cunning. They expected surrender. They would get defiance instead. Lieutenant Mara gripped her controls tightly, her knuckles white under the gloves. Her fighter's engines roared, propelling her through the void with precision. Her target, a massive Zir destroyer, one of the dreadships at the front of the enemy formation. Its shield shimmered with energy that could melt steel, but Mara knew every system had a weak point. She had studied them. She had trained for this. "Stay calm," she whispered to herself, though her heart pounded like a drum. "We are humans. We survive. We fight." Around her, other pilots darted like hawks, swooping in and out, striking alien ships where they were most vulnerable. Explosions tore through the void, brilliant flashes lighting up the darkness. Human ingenuity and speed created chaos among the Zir, who had relied on fear and sheer power to win battles. On the vigilant dawn, Admiral Kyle's eyes never left the holographic display. Red dots exploded into nothingness as human fighters struck again and again. "Focus on their flanks," he ordered calmly. "Keep them off balance. Let them see that we are not afraid." A young officer, barely out of training, hesitated. "Admiral, our fighters are too small. They cannot penetrate the dreadship's shields." Kale's eyes were sharp, his voice steady. "Size does not win battles. Will does, skill does. Courage does. Trust them. Trust humanity." The alien dreadships, massive and imposing, struggled to react. They had faced countless civilizations, all of whom submitted before destruction. But humans were different. They moved unpredictably, striking and retreating, weaving around obstacles like shadows. Their attacks were precise, surgical, and terrifying in their effectiveness. Mara looped around the Zir destroyer, dodging a stream of energy that would have vaporized any pilot from another species. Her hands moved instinctively, following maneuvers she had only practiced in simulations. She reached the weak point near the ship's engine core. Her heart leapt as she fired a volley of missiles, hitting the mark. The destroyer shuddered violently. Sparks and debris erupted from its hull as the shields flickered. Mara felt a rush of adrenaline, a mixture of fear and triumph. "We can do this," she whispered over comms. "We are doing it." Back on the carrier bridge, Kale allowed himself a moment of pride. The Zir commanders were learning something they had never understood. Humans were relentless. They did not fear death because to humans courage was worth more than life itself. The battle escalated as human carriers released wave after wave of jets. Each wave, each strike tore a hole in the Dreadfleet's formation. Explosions cascaded like stars dying in the night. The void was alive with fire, metal, and the pulse of human determination. On the front lines, Mara noticed something impossible. One of the alien dreadships hesitated. Its energy cannons, designed to incinerate planets, flickered. Confusion rippled through the alien fleet. They were not used to this. They had never faced defiance like this before. Mara's comms buzzed with excitement. Admiral, they're slowing down. They don't know what to do. Kale's voice came steady and commanding. Good, keep pressing. Show them that we do not break. Show them that humans are defiant. The Zir commanders were panicking now. Messages crackled in alien frequencies filled with fear and disbelief. They are attacking with such speed. They are reckless, but effective. How can this be? Mara's jet dove under the enemy's defenses, narrowly escaping a barrage that could have torn her ship apart. She planted explosives along the hull of another dread ship and pulled away just in time. The explosion lit up the darkness, sending shrapnel scattering into the void. Even as some human jets were lost, their sacrifice did not go unnoticed. Each explosion, each maneuver inspired the rest of the fleet. Humans were fighting not because they had to, but because they refused to yield. Every pilot, every carrier crew, every human heart on those ships pulsed with a single thought: we will not surrender. As the first hour of battle ended, the Zir Dreadfleet had already suffered losses that were impossible in their own history. Their formations were broken, their commanders confused and terrified. They had expected humans to be easy prey. They had been wrong. Kale watched the chaos with a mixture of grief and pride. He knew the coming hours would be brutal. Many would die, many ships would fall, but humanity had delivered a blow to the galaxy that would never be forgotten. Mara's voice broke through his thoughts. Admiral, we're hitting them hard, but they're everywhere. There's so many of them. Kale's voice was calm, almost serene. Then we fight harder. We are human. We are defiant. And today we show the galaxy that defiance is stronger than fear. In the void, red dots flashed and vanished. Explosions painted the blackness in orange and white. And at the center of it all, the human fleet, small but unyielding, pressed forward, unstoppable in their courage, undeniable in their spirit. The first strike had been made, and humanity had already begun to change the course of the galaxy. The void was alive with fire and metal, the echoes of battle stretching across the black expanse of space. The human fleet, battered but unbroken, pressed forward. Each carrier released new waves of fighters, each jet darting through enemy fire with uncanny precision. The Zir Dreadfleet, once a symbol of unstoppable power, now wavered under humanity's relentless assault. Admiral Kale watched the holographic display with keen eyes, noticing every movement, every hesitation of the alien ships. They are faltering, he muttered almost to himself. Good, let them feel fear. Let them taste doubt. Humans fight with heart, and heart is something no machine can match. Lieutenant Mara's jet screamed through the battlefield, weaving between alien energy blasts that could have incinerated her instantly. Around her, other pilots executed daring maneuvers, striking weak points in the alien ships that no one thought possible. Explosions lit the void in brilliant flashes, reflecting in her visor as if the stars themselves had joined the fight. Over the comms, voices rang with a mixture of adrenaline and exhaustion. Target the dorsal shields, now, shouted a young pilot. Another cried, I can't believe this is working. Mara gritted her teeth and pressed forward. She could feel the trembling in her hands, the sweat on her brow. Her heart pounded, but she had no time to think of fear. She had a mission. To survive, to fight, to protect humanity's defiance. We are human, she whispered. We never bow. We never break. Back on the Vigilant Dawn, Kale received a distress signal from the Iron Resolve, a carrier that had taken heavy fire. Admiral, shields are failing. Hull integrity compromised. Kale's jaw tightened. He looked at his crew and spoke with calm authority. Hold them together. Every ship matters. We do not leave our own behind. Mara's jet changed course instantly. She flew alongside the damaged carrier, providing cover for the retreating fighters. She could see the sparks and smoke trailing from the Iron Resolve, and her heart clenched. Humans were tough, yes, but they were not invincible. And yet, even in damage, they refused to surrender. Meanwhile, the Zir fleet was in chaos. Their commanders barked orders that no one could follow, their formations crumbling under the human onslaught. The dread ships designed to destroy worlds were falling like dominoes. Confusion spread through their ranks. They had never faced a species that fought not with fear but with reckless courage, not with overwhelming firepower but with ingenuity and unity. A young officer on the bridge of the Vigilant Dawn whispered in awe, "Admiral." They're panicking. They've never seen humans like this before. Kale nodded, his expression hard. Good. Let them understand that defiance is stronger than terror. Let them see that humanity will not bow. On the battlefield, Mara found herself diving into the heart of the enemy formation, dodging massive energy cannons and swarming fighter escorts. She planted explosives on a Zir dreadship, pulling away just in time to watch it erupt in flames. The void was alive with fire, metal, and the pulse of human determination. Every pilot on the human side felt the same surge of energy, the mixture of fear and exhilaration that only battle could bring. They had nothing to lose but their lives, and yet, every strike they made carried the weight of humanity's pride. Every explosion was a message: we will not be crushed. We will not bow. We will survive. Kale turned to his communications officer. Prepare a broadcast, he said, voice steady. Let the galaxy hear this. Humans fight, and they fight with everything they have. Let this be a warning to those who think we are weak. The officer hesitated. Admiral, is that wise? They can intercept. Kale cut him off. They will hear it anyway. They will see it in our actions. Let them hear it in our defiance. As the Zir Dreadfleet continued to crumble, Kale noticed the first signs of true fear in the alien commanders. Their energy beams misfired, shields dropped at critical moments, and communication became erratic. The humans were not only surviving, they were controlling the battlefield. Mara's jet streaked past another dreadship, narrowly avoiding a volley of missiles. She thought of her family on Earth, of the colonies lost to the Zir, and felt a surge of determination. For them, she whispered. For humanity. For everyone who has ever been told we are weak. We are strong. We are human. The battle stretched on for hours. Pilots on both sides were exhausted, carriers battered, and the void filled with the smoke and fire of destroyed ships. Yet the human fleet remained unbroken. Every loss was mourned, but every victory fueled the fire in their hearts. The Zir, once supreme in power and control, were now fractured, terrified, and unsure of what to do next. Kyle allowed himself a small smile as he watched the alien dreadships falter. Humanity had turned the tide in just a few hours. The humans were smaller, weaker, fewer, but they had heart, courage, and defiance. And that, he knew, was worth more than any technology, more than any fleet. Mara, flying back to the carrier after covering a retreating squadron, felt exhaustion and relief mix in her chest. She had survived the impossible. She had seen humans fight as one, a force that no machine, no alien could fully anticipate. She knew the battle was far from over, but humanity had made its mark. The void settled into a tense pause. Explosions still echoed in the distance, but the immediate wave of attack had subsided. The Zir Dreadfleet was wounded, fractured, and unsure, and humanity, small but defiant, had survived the first strike. Kale's voice came over the comms, steady and commanding. This is only the beginning. We will fight. We will endure. And we will show the galaxy that humans do not bow. Not now. Not ever. In the quiet between the explosions, the human fleet took a moment to breathe, to repair, to regroup. But in every heart the same fire burned. Courage, defiance, and the unshakable will to survive. Humanity had risen, and the Zir were beginning to understand that underestimating them had been the gravest mistake of their long, proud history. The void was no longer silent. The explosions of alien ships, the roar of human engines, and the crackle of energy beams painted a chaotic symphony across the blackness of space. Humanity's fleet, battered but unbroken, pressed forward with relentless determination. Each carrier released waves of fighter jets, each pilot moving with deadly precision, their hearts filled with courage that no weapon could measure. Admiral Kale stood at the bridge of the Vigilant Dawn, eyes sharp as he watched the enemy fleet wobble under the weight of humanity's assault. The Zir dreadships had never faced anything like this. They had anticipated submission, fear, and weakness, but humans had none of these. Humans had strategy, instinct, and something the Zir could never understand. Willpower. Target the central dreadship formation, Kale ordered, his voice calm but commanding. Hit them where they think they are strongest. Strike with everything we have. Let them feel our defiance. Lieutenant Mara tightened her grip on her controls. Her jet swooped around a massive Zir destroyer, narrowly avoiding a barrage of energy blasts. Her mind was focused, clear. Every maneuver, every shot counted. She could see the enemy faltering, shields flickering, energy cores destabilizing. Humanity had found their weakness and they were not letting go. "Admiral," one officer said, voice tense. "Their flagship is moving erratically. They're confused. We've never seen them like this." Kale's expression hardened. "Good, let them be confused. Chaos is our ally. Keep pressing. Do not stop until they understand that humans fight as one." Around the battlefield, human fighters darted between debris, through the wreckage of destroyed alien ships, and into positions that no simulator could teach. They worked as a unit, each pilot instinctively supporting the others, creating a deadly ballet of precision strikes. Explosions lit the void, reflecting in the eyes of the pilots as if the stars themselves were witnessing humanity's defiance. Mara's jet dived toward another dreadship, her heart hammering. She could see the energy shields flicker, smoke trailing from the engines and weak points exposed along the hull. "Now," she whispered, firing her missiles. The dreadship shuddered violently before erupting in brilliant flames, debris scattering into the void. Mara pulled up just in time, the heat and shockwave pushing her fighter dangerously close to the edge. Back on the Vigilant Dawn, Kyle allowed himself a brief moment of pride. The Zir fleet, once an unstoppable wave of destruction, was breaking. Their formations were fractured, their commanders frantic. Humans had turned the tide not with raw firepower but with courage, strategy, and sheer unpredictability. "Admiral," another officer said, eyes wide, "they're retreating. Parts of their fleet are pulling back." Kyle shook his head slightly, a small grim smile on his lips. "Not yet. They are not retreating, they are panicking, and we must make them understand the cost of underestimating humanity." Mara's comm crackled with the voices of her squadron. "Covering the flanks," one pilot shouted. "We can't let them escape." Human fighters surged forward, surrounding the fractured enemy fleet. The Zir dreadships, massive and terrifying, had no room to maneuver. Explosions erupted across the void, tearing through their ranks, and for the first time, the Zir realized that humans were more than a nuisance. They were a force to be reckoned with. Mara's eyes filled with tears as she witnessed the destruction, the human ingenuity, the bravery of every pilot risking everything. She thought of her home world, of the colonies lost to the Zir, and of the people who had said humanity would never survive in the stars. "We are here," she thought. "We are alive. We are defiant." On the Vigilant Dawn, Kale's voice cut through the comms. "All carriers prepare for the final push. We strike the core of their fleet. Let them see that humans do not bow. Let them see that defiance is stronger than fear." The carriers surged forward, releasing their full complement of fighters in a coordinated strike. Missiles, energy beams, and precise attacks tore through the Zir formation, leaving trails of fire and debris in their wake. The flagship, once a symbol of terror, now shuddered as human pilots targeted its weak points with relentless determination. Mara dove her fighter through the wreckage, planting explosives on the flagship's engine core. She pulled away just in time, as the ship erupted in a blinding explosion, sending shockwaves across the enemy fleet. One by one, the dreadships fell, their once mighty presence reduced to drifting husks in the void. Even as some human pilots were lost, their sacrifice became a rallying cry for the rest of the fleet. Every strike, every maneuver carried the weight of human courage and pride. The Zir commanders were no longer confident. They were terrified. They had underestimated humans, and now they were paying the price. Kale's eyes never left the display. "This is our moment," he said quietly. We have shown the galaxy that humans are not weak, that courage, unity, and defiance cannot be measured by size or technology. They can only be felt and respected. As the last of the flagship's escort was destroyed, Mara pulled her jet alongside the battered carriers. Exhaustion weighed on her body, but her spirit soared. Humanity had turned the tide. They had faced the impossible and emerged victorious, at least for this moment. The void was quiet now, the echoes of explosions lingering like ghosts. The Dreadfleet, once a terrifying wave of destruction, had been shattered. They were retreating, broken and afraid. Humanity had proven that courage, defiance, and unity could triumph over fear and oppression. Cale allowed himself a rare smile. He knew the battle was far from over, but humanity had shown its true strength. They were small, fragile in the eyes of the galaxy, yet unbreakable in spirit. And the Zir, for the first time in their long history, had learned that underestimating humans was a mistake they would never forget. Mara looked at the stars, streaked with fire and debris, and whispered softly, "We are human, and we will never bow." The tide had turned. The defiance of humanity had begun to echo across the galaxy. The void was no longer alive with the roar of battle, it was alive with silence. The once mighty Zir Dreadfleet floated in fragments, shattered by human courage and relentless strategy. Ships that had once inspired terror were now twisted wrecks, drifting through the emptiness, smoke trailing from broken engines. The humans had done what no one thought possible. They had broken the invincible. Admiral Cale stood on the bridge of the Vigilant Dawn, his eyes scanning the wreckage. He did not smile. This was not a victory to celebrate. There were losses on both sides, human lives that could never be replaced. But he felt a quiet pride, a deep, unshakable pride in what humanity had accomplished. "Admiral," a communications officer said, voice shaking, "they're requesting negotiations. They're begging for mercy." Cale's eyes narrowed. He leaned forward, resting his hands on the console. The Zir had never begged before. Never. Their arrogance had been absolute, their confidence unshakable. And now they were broken. They were vulnerable. "Open a channel," Cale ordered. His voice was calm but carried the weight of authority. "Let them speak." A holographic projection flickered to life on the bridge, showing a Zir commander, scales scorched, energy shields flickering. The alien's voice was harsh but trembling. "Humans, we surrender. We beg you. Do not destroy us. We underestimated your species. Forgive our arrogance." Cale studied the projection. The alien's pride was gone, replaced by fear. He could feel it radiating through the comms, a raw, desperate energy. Humanity had forced this moment, and the galaxy would remember it forever. "You underestimated humans," Cale said quietly, more to himself than to the alien. Then he spoke into the comms. "Your fleet is shattered. Your ships are destroyed. You came to intimidate and conquer. Now you have learned what humanity is capable of." On the carrier decks, Lieutenant Mara watched as the alien ships slowly lowered their weapons. Her fighter hovered above a drifting Zir cruiser. Engines glowing faintly, she could see the relief in the alien pilot's movements. They were alive and terrified. Mara's hands rested lightly on her controls. She thought of all the human pilots who would never return home, all the lives lost in this battle. But she also thought of the courage, the unity, the defiance that had carried them through. Humans had survived the impossible. Humans had shattered a fleet that was supposed to be unstoppable. Cale turned to his officers, his voice steady. "We do not celebrate their surrender with joy. We do not mock them. We remember our losses. But we do not forget that defiance is our strength. Humanity will not bow. Humanity will not be crushed." A young ensign whispered, almost in disbelief. "Admiral, they're terrified. They're asking for mercy." Kyle nodded. "Yes, and they should be. But we do not destroy without reason. Humanity fights to survive, to protect, and to endure. Let them remember that defiance cannot be broken, but mercy can be given by those who are stronger, not just in weapons, but in spirit." Mara's comm crackled again. "Admiral, some of their smaller ships are sending distress signals. They're pleading for us to leave them alone." They're scared. Kale allowed a faint smile. Then leave them. Let them live with the knowledge that humans do not bow, that humans do not give in to fear. Let them carry this lesson across the galaxy. The Zir Dreadfleet had been shattered, their arrogance replaced by terror, their confidence replaced by trembling uncertainty. Humanity had proven something the galaxy had long refused to believe. Size and power did not guarantee victory. Heart, courage, and unity could overcome any force. On the fighter decks, Mara felt tears sting her eyes. She had survived the impossible. She had witnessed humanity rise against overwhelming odds. The pilots around her cheered softly, not for destruction but for survival, for defiance, for the unbreakable spirit that bound them together. Kale's voice came over the comms again, solemn and strong. Attention all ships. The Zir have surrendered. Our losses are real. Our victory is hard won, but humanity stands unbroken. We fight not for glory, but for survival, for pride, and for the right to exist. Remember this moment. Remember what it means to be human. The void was quiet now, save for the hum of human engines and the distant drifting of alien wreckage. The Zir, once a terror across the stars, had learned a lesson they would never forget. Humans were not weak. Humans did not fear. Humans did not surrender. Mara looked at the stars streaked with fire and debris, and a sense of awe filled her chest. She thought of her family, of her homeworld, of all the colonies humanity had built against impossible odds. Humanity had survived. Humanity had fought. Humanity had won. And as she spoke softly to herself, she felt the truth of it echo in her heart. We are human. We are defiant. And no one, not even the strongest fleet in the galaxy, can take that from us. Admiral Kale gazed out into the void, his heart heavy with loss but soaring with pride. Humanity had proven itself not through sheer firepower, not through technology, but through courage, unity, and defiance. The Zir would remember today, and the galaxy would remember humanity. For the first time in their history, the Zir fleet knew fear, not of annihilation, but of the indomitable human spirit. And that was a fear that would echo across the stars forever. The shattering was complete. The humans had triumphed not just in battle but in spirit, and the galaxy, wide and dark, had begun to take notice. The battle had ended, but the void was far from quiet. Debris floated through the darkness, remnants of what had once been the mighty Zir Dreadfleet. Fires burned across the hulls of shattered ships, their smoke drifting in the vacuum of space like ghostly echoes of defeat. The humans, exhausted and battered, slowly regrouped. Victory had been won, but at a cost that weighed heavily on every heart. Admiral Kale stood on the bridge of the vigilant dawn, staring at the stars. The destruction of the Zir fleet had been remarkable, but his mind could not rest. He thought of the young pilots who would never return home, the carriers that had been lost, the lives that had been sacrificed. Humanity had survived. Yes, but survival had come with pain, grief, and a deep, unshakable awareness of their mortality. Lieutenant Mara floated beside him, her hands folded across her chest as she looked out into the black void. Her fighter was damaged, but she had survived. She could still feel the tremor of explosions under her feet, the heat of destroyed ships flashing in her mind. "It's over," she said softly, though the words felt hollow. Kale shook his head. "Not yet," he replied. "The battle is over. The fight continues. Out there," he gestured toward the scattered wreckage of the Zir fleet, "they will remember us. They will fear us. And we will rebuild. We will survive, but our work is not done." On the carrier decks, pilots removed their helmets, faces streaked with sweat and soot. Some laughed softly, relief trembling in their voices. Others simply stared, lost in memories of their fallen comrades. Humanity had endured the impossible. They had shattered a fleet thought unbeatable, driven fear into the hearts of a species that had never known defeat, but they had done it with pain, with sacrifice, and with courage that words could barely describe. Mara walked along the flight deck, watching pilots embrace, others quietly mourning. She felt a strange mixture of pride and sorrow. She thought of her family on Earth, of the colonies that had looked to the stars for hope, and of the humans who had given everything to keep that hope alive. "We did it," she whispered. "We really did it." Kyle's voice came over the comms, steady and calm. "All ships report status. We must account for every life, every carrier. The Zur may be shattered, but the galaxy will not wait. We must be ready for what comes next." Reports began to pour in. Carriers had survived against impossible odds. Fighters had returned, though some were damaged beyond repair. Human pilots had flown with courage that defied imagination, turning the tide of battle through determination and unity, rather than overwhelming firepower. Humanity had proven that the spirit mattered more than size, more than weapons, more than numbers. As the hours passed, Kale walked among his crew, speaking quietly to each officer, each pilot. He did not offer false praise, for this was a victory earned with blood and sacrifice, but he offered acknowledgement, respect, and understanding. Humanity had survived, but they had done it together, bound by courage, defiance, and the unbreakable will to endure. Mara found herself in the medbay, watching wounded pilots receive care. Some were young, barely adults, their faces pale and drawn, yet their eyes sparkled with resilience. Each one had faced the impossible and had survived. Humanity had risen against fear, against the impossible, against a fleet that had never known defeat, and they had triumphed. Kyle stood in the observation deck as night fell across the scattered battlefield, stars flickering like distant candles. He felt the weight of command, the burden of responsibility, and the pride of knowing that humanity had faced the unthinkable and prevailed. The Zir fleet would tell stories of this day, of the humans who would not bow, who would not surrender, and who had shattered a Dreadfleet thought invincible. Mara joined him silently, standing beside the Admiral. No words were needed. Their eyes met, sharing the unspoken bond of those who had survived, who had fought, and who had witnessed humanity's defiance firsthand. She thought of the pilots lost, of the carriers destroyed, and of the courage that had carried them through. Humanity had survived, but they had survived because they had refused to surrender to fear. Kale's voice broke the silence, calm and measured. "Remember this," he said. "The galaxy will not always understand us. They will underestimate us. They will doubt us. But we know the truth. Humans fight, humans endure, and humans never bow. That is what makes us stronger than any fleet, any weapon, any enemy." In the quiet that followed, Mara felt a deep sense of resolve. Humanity had endured fire and destruction, had faced the impossible, and had come out alive. The Zir fleet was shattered, but the spirit of humanity was whole, burning brighter than ever. "We are human," she whispered, "and we are unstoppable when we fight together." Across the fleet, repairs began. Medics tended the wounded, and pilots cleaned their ships. The silence of the aftermath was a strange kind of peace, broken only by the hum of engines and the occasional crackle of damaged systems. Humanity had survived, and in surviving they had sent a message to the galaxy. Strength was not in fear, or power, or technology. It was in courage, in unity, in the unyielding will to endure. Kale looked at the stars, feeling the weight of the past hours and the hope of what was to come. Humanity had been tested and had risen. The galaxy had taken notice, and somewhere deep in the blackness of space, the echoes of their defiance would linger, a warning and a promise. Humans were here, humans were alive, and humanity would never bow. The void seemed calmer now, but in every human heart the fire still burned. Humanity had faced the impossible, had shattered a Dreadfleet, and had survived. And they would rise again, stronger, wiser, and unbreakable in spirit. The void of space was quiet now, but it was not empty. The remnants of the Zir Dreadfleet drifted like broken monuments, scattered across the darkness, a testament to the courage and defiance of humanity. The human fleet moved among the wreckage, battered but unbroken, repairing, regrouping, and taking stock of their victory. It was a calm that felt earned, heavy with the weight of lives lost and courage displayed. Admiral Kale stood on the bridge of the Vigilant Dawn, his gaze sweeping across the expanse. He had led the fleet through fire, chaos, and seemingly impossible odds. He had seen young pilots face death with unshakable courage, witnessed carriers withstand devastating blows, and felt humanity's heart beat strong through every sacrifice. The Zir, who had come to intimidate, to conquer, now drifted in fear and silence. A holographic projection appeared on the main display, showing the remaining Zir commanders. Their scales were scorched, their ships crippled, their pride shattered. For the first time, they did not issue threats. They did not demand victory. Instead, they trembled, transmitting their surrender across the void. Kale's voice was calm, measured, carrying the weight of history. "The Zir have surrendered," he said. "Their fleet is broken, their weapons silent. Humanity has endured, and we have shown the galaxy that courage is stronger than terror, unity stronger than fear, and defiance stronger than domination." Lieutenant Mara hovered near her damaged fighter, looking at the scattered remnants of the enemy. Her hands shook slightly, not from fear but from the intensity of the battle they had survived. Pilots around her whispered words of relief and sorrow. They had seen their friends fall, they had seen ships destroyed, but they had also witnessed something extraordinary: humanity's refusal to bow. Kale turned to his officers, his voice carrying through the comms. "We honor our losses. We remember every pilot, every crew member, every life given in the defense of humanity. But we do not bow, we do not break, and we do not fear. Humanity survives because we fight together, because we endure, because we are defiant." Across the fleet, human pilots cheered softly, a sound filled with relief, sorrow, pride, and hope. Mara's eyes glistened as she thought of her homeworld, the colonies and the generations of humans who had survived against impossible odds. Humanity had faced annihilation and had emerged victorious, not through brute force alone, but through courage, ingenuity, and an unbreakable spirit. The Zir fleet, now retreating in scattered fragments, would remember this day forever. Their arrogance had been shattered, their terror exposed, and their respect for humanity earned. But it was not hatred or revenge that guided Kale's actions. It was understanding, and the recognition that the galaxy could only change if humanity survived to shape it. Kale activated a comm broadcast to the surviving Zir. "We will not destroy you. You will live, and you will carry the knowledge that humanity does not bow, does not surrender, and does not yield. Let this be a lesson for the galaxy. Underestimate humans at your own peril." Mara felt a warmth in her chest as she listened. Humanity had survived against the impossible. They had shattered the fleet that was supposed to be unstoppable, and yet they had shown mercy, proving that courage and honor could coexist. Her heart swelled with pride, and she whispered to herself, "We are human, and we are unstoppable." The fleet moved slowly through the aftermath, repairing what could be repaired, rescuing survivors, and honoring the dead. The void, once filled with fire and destruction, now shimmered with a strange beauty, the beauty of endurance, of survival, of hearts that refused to break. Kyle walked among the crew of the Vigilant Dawn, speaking quietly to those who had survived. He did not offer false comfort, for this victory had come at a cost. But he offered acknowledgement, respect, and the knowledge that their courage had changed history. Humanity had risen, not just to survive, but to claim its place in the galaxy. Mara stood beside him silently, looking out at the distant stars. She thought of all the moments that had led to this point. The fear, the exhaustion, the heart-pounding maneuvers in the void. She thought of her friends, her family, and the countless humans who had sacrificed everything to survive. And she knew without a doubt that humanity would endure. Cal spoke softly, almost to himself, but loud enough for Mara to hear. "The galaxy will take notice. They will remember today. Humans are not weak. Humans are not prey. Humans endure. And we are defiant. Always." The human fleet, battered but alive, moved steadily through the remnants of the battle. Each ship carried survivors. Each pilot carried courage, and each crew carried the unyielding spirit of a species that refused to bow. Humanity had faced annihilation and had prevailed. They had shattered an empire's fleet and forced its commanders to beg for mercy. Mara felt tears streak her face as she whispered again, "We are human, and we will never bow." Around her, other pilots echoed silently, feeling the weight of what they had accomplished. Humanity had endured the impossible, survived the unthinkable, and proven that defiance was their greatest weapon. As the fleet sailed through the void, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter, reflecting the hearts of humans who had survived and triumphed. The Zir would retreat, the galaxy would remember, and humanity would rise stronger, wiser, and unbreakable in spirit. Admiral Kyle looked out into the vastness of space, his heart heavy with loss but soaring with pride. Humanity had proven its strength not in weapons alone, but in courage, unity, and an indomitable will. They had fought, they had endured, and they had triumphed. And in that silence, that quiet aftermath of fire and victory, the galaxy would never forget. Humans do not bow. Humans do not surrender. Humans endure. Humanity was triumphant, and their defiance would echo across the stars forever.